Hello, students. Today we'll have the explanation of the chapter The Enemy of Vista's book written by Pearl S. Buck. And today we will have the explanation of this chapter from page number 34 to page number 39. Now, my dear students, let's get into the explanation right now. Now, when we ended on in the last part of the video in video 3 and in the third part of the video, I told you that at this point of time Hannah was not in a good situation. She was vomiting at this point of time, and the husband Sada was wanting to go and help her, but he was unable to, just because he had just operated and dissected a person over there who was an American who was badly hurt by a wound by a bullet, and he wanted to take that bullet out and to cure him, because he was that was a part of his profession. He wanted to do that, but as being a husband, he also wanted to go and help his wife, but he was unable to do so. Now, coming to page number 34, and today's explanation, we will begin with that. Now, this man, he thought there is no reason under the heaven why he should live. As being a Japanese person, he didn't wanted to actually help this person. He didn't wanted this person to be actually alive. Unconsciously, this thought made him much more ruthless, made him much more merciless, pitiless, or heartless, you can say. And he proceeded, but he just being a doctor, he just proceeded his work swiftly, very rapidly, immediately, and instantly. And in his dream, the man moaned. This American person moaned, who was lying unconsciously right in front of him. He started moaning. He started mumbling in pain, and but Sadao paid no attention, no heed. No heed means no attention towards it, and except to mutter at him, he also, in response, he just also mumbled at him, and Sadao said, "Oh, groan." Groan, he muttered. Groan, if you like. Groan means to, if you want to just mumble in pain, you are, if you wish so, if you want to do so, you can do so. I am not doing this for my own pleasure. Sadao says he is not doing this for his own pleasure, for his own happiness. In fact, he did not know why is he doing it. Now the door opened in such a situation, and there was Hannah back again to help her husband, and Sadao motioned or gestured actually to her with his chin, that it is as well that you came back. He said, "This fellow is beginning to stir." So this man was beginning to stir means this man, the effect of the anesthetic was about to go over, and that is why he was about to move. And she had the bottle and some cotton in her hand, and she asked, "But how shall I do it?" Because she hadn't done it earlier before, and that is why she asked from her husband, how will she do this? And he said, simply saturate the cotton, simply soak the cotton and hold it near to the nostrils. And Sada replied without delaying, and he replied within a moment, and doing his complex detail of his work. When he breathes badly, move it away a little. You just have to bring it close to the nostril so that he could actually breathe that anesthetic inside. And when he feels a kind of a problem and he breathes badly, take it just away, so that that thing would work it out. And she crouched close to the sleeping face of the young American, and she just bent down to the sleeping face of the young American. It was it was a very thin face, she thought, and the lips were twisted. It was not good. The man was suffering, whether he knew it or not. This man had suffered a lot, and the different kind of wounds the bullet all had done. So he had suffered a lot. Watching him, she wondered if the stories they heard sometimes of the sufferings of the prisoners were true. There is lot of suffering that actually happens when a prisoner of war is taken captive, when any kind of army person related to the defense forces is taken captive by an enemy. So in such a situation, they are taken and not treated good, and they are treated very badly, my dear students. And there came the like flicks of rumors told by word and always contradicted in. Flickers of rumor, my dear students, flickers means a brief feeling of rumor. Rumor is some gossip, some people said something, some people said something, and there was a lot of rumor around. And somebody said something, and this was all contradicted, and it was all denied by each other in some or the other way. So in the newspapers also, the reports were always that wherever the Japanese people, Japanese armies went, they were received, and the people received them gladly, uh, with cries of joy at then from the liberation actually. So they felt that the people have been actually liberated, they are free. But sometimes she remembers such men as General Takima. She remembers one of the Japanese general was General Takima, who had at home beat his wife cruelly, thought no more, no one mentioned it now that he had fought so victorious a battle in Manchuria. Now, this man was really a very brutal person, and whenever any such kind of a person, prisoner of war, is taken captive, he used to treat very badly. He treated all those prisoners of war very badly. And in such a situation, if you could treat a prisoner of war so badly, you cannot expect that such kind of a person would actually treat lovely with his wife. And no one would speak against such a man who have fought a victorious battle in Manchuria, which is a part of China, my dear students. If a man like that could actually be so cruel to a woman in his power, would he be not cruel to one like this? For instance, if one can be cruel to a woman, if one can be cruel to his own wife, how can you think how like for this example? Instance means example. You for this kind of a person, you if this person is taken an example, how can you just think that this general could actually leave such kind of a person? Now she hoped anxiously that this young man had not been tortured. So, and she simply thought, she was simply worried that this young man perhaps is not tortured, and in this way. And it was at this moment that she observed that there were deep scars on his neck. She found there were deep wounds on his neck just under the ear, and those scars, she murmured, she mumbled, lifting her eyes to Sadao. And but Sadao did not answer at this moment. He felt the tip of his instrument strike against something hard. So when he was working on the patient, so he struck something with the heart with his instrument when he was doing the surgery, and dangerously it was near the kidney. So all thoughts left him. He felt only the purest pleasure, and he probed his fingers with his fingers. He was examining. My dear students, he was exploring with his fingers to find out where the bullet was, which had hit him actually hit this person with his fingers delicately, familiar with every atom of this human body, familiar with every part of this human body. His old American professor, from which he had learned surgery in America, he had told him something very crucial, my dear students, and those. It is a very lovely thing for people for who want to become surgeons, who want to become doctors and surgeons. Basically, it's for them. It's a lovely thing that's written over here, and it's given over here for a professor of anatomy. Anatomy is, my dear student, is a kind of a branch of science which deals with the dissection and separation of body parts and study of the internal organs of the parts of the body. And he had learned this thing from his professor of anatomy in when he was studying MBBS in America. He had learned it from over there, and there he had learned thing. Ignorance of the human body is the surgeon's cardinal sin, sirs. That was the sentence that always struck his mind, because that was taught when he was in America. Ignorance, if any surgeon ignores a very small thing, it could prove fatal for people, for patients, and that can take the life of a patient. And that is why each and everything should be taken very seriously. Very smallest of the things should be taken very seriously. Otherwise, it's just a sin, you can say. Cardinal sin means fundamental sin, or you can say it's a primarily it's a sin. It's a primary sin, you can say. It's just like a kind of a murdering. If you Take an example. Let's move ahead, my dear students. Later on, he said he had thundered at this at his classes year after year. He had learned this. He had got this thing in his mind to operate without us complete knowledge of the body, as if you have made it anything less than that is murder. So it's very important for any of the those students who want to become surgeons, doctors, surgeons who want to operate on the human body. For them, it's this is the thing that you should keep in mind. You should not and you should never neglect the smallest of the things what you should be keeping in your mind in such a situation. And you must know that there is that even the doctor has a knife, and even the surgeon has a knife, and even the murderer has a knife. The murderer, the knife the murderer has kills the person, while the knife of a surgeon saves the life of a person. So it's a very deep thing, and any person who wants to become a surgeon or doctor or a surgeon should take it very seriously. Now let's move ahead, my dear students. Sada murmured over here, it's not quite at the kidney, my friend. No, he was so much indulged in his work. He had the habit of talking, mumbling himself and talking to the patient over there. Even the patient lying over there is unconscious. He used to talk to him in that way, and he used to call patients as friend. So he used to call him, he was calling this person as friend. It is not quite at the kidney, my friend. And he mumbled, and it was his habit to murmur to the patients. And he forgot himself in an operation, my friend. That was his term. That was, he always used to call his patients. And he always called his patients. And so now he did, forgetting that that this person was actually his enemy. Now, then quickly, with the cleanness and the most precise, with the most accurate and exact of the incisions of a surgical cut. Incision is actually a surgical cut on the body. So incision was made by Sadao, and the bullet was out. Now the man in such a situation quivered. He shook with pain actually, but he was still unconscious. Nevertheless, he mumbled a few English words. Guts, he muttered. They got my guts. He was saying something like guts. Somebody they got something. He sentence was incomplete, and he said my guts, my stomach, simply because he had operated on his stomach. So that is why, and the pain was must be having from his stomach, and that is why the word guts came. The word came out of from over there maybe. And Hannah cried sharply, Sadao, and Sadao said, hush. This is trying to just stop the patient from speaking anything in pain. A person which is somewhat unconscious, you can say, and he is about to rise. And the man sank again, and man rested there again in silence. And it was so intense, it was so profound, it was so intense or extreme. The Sadao took up his wrist actually to check his pulse. Whether this person is alive or not, if he's having the pulse, so to check it, what the pulse rate was. So to took up his wrist, hating the touch of it even. Yes, there was still a pulse, so faint, so feeble, but it was enough. It was feeble, it means it was faint. It was faint, but it was something that this man could live. If he wanted this man to live, to give hope. But suddenly, I do not want this man to live. He thought in his own mind. He didn't, simply because he was this particular man lying in front of him was an American. He didn't wanted this man to live, but being a doctor, he wanted to save the life, and that is what he did. And he told Hannah, no more anesthetic. There is no need of more anesthetic to this person. He turned as swiftly, and he turned quickly as though he had never paused from his medicine, and he chose a small vial. Now, my dear students, a small vial is actually a kind of a small container made of a glass, which is used especially for holding liquid medicines actually. And he filled the medicine into his hypodermic syringe, a syringe which is used to inject the drug beneath the skin actually, and thrust it and just pushed it, the medicine, into the patient's left arm, and then putting down the needle, and he took the man's wrist again, and he started checking his pulse again, and the pulse under his fingers fluttered. It actually pulsated irregularly once or twice, and then the speed of the pulse rate actually grew faster. And this man, Sadao said, this man will live in spite of all. And he said to Hannah and sighed over there. Sighed means to emit a long breath, audible breath, and expressing relief over there. And the young man woke in such a situation. So the young man woke so weak, his blue eyes so terrified when he perceived, actually, after this whole thing happened, and when this man got conscious, this American man got conscious. So in such a situation, this man had blue eyes, he was weak, and he woke up, and he was terrified, he was scared. And when he perceived, when he understood where he was actually, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. He felt pressurized to apologize, to pardon actually. And she herself served him food, for none of the servants would actually enter the room at that point of time. And when she came in the first time, she saw him summon. She gathered him. She saw him gathering his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Actually, don't be afraid. She begged him softly. How come you speak English? So first of all, she said, "Don't be afraid." And when this American man saw actually that she was speaking English, and that is why he spoke to her, and he said, how come you speak English? Is how that is possible that you are speaking English when you are Japanese? And he gasped. Gasp means to catch breath with open mouth, simply because he was in pain, and he had been operated upon. So that is why he was taking breath heavily. Now, I was a long time in America, she replied, and she saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not, and so he simply because he was hurt so much, he had been operated upon, he wanted to reply, and but couldn't do so because of the pain, and so she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. Porcelain is ceramic spoon, and he ate unwillingly, but still he ate. And now you will be soon. Now you will soon be strong, she said, not liking, and yet moved to comfort this person. And he did not answer. This American person did not answer. When Sadao came in the third day after the operation, he found that the young man sitting up, his face was bloodless now with the effort. He was clean. He was bloodless with the effort. Now lie down, Sadao cried. Do you want to die? It's better that you lie down, and you don't have to sit now, because he had operated upon, and certainly in such a situation strain would come on the different incisions on whatever he had made, and that is why it's very necessary that he just stays lying over there. And that is why he forced the man to just lie down, and he says, you may kill yourself if you do this sort of thing. He scolded him and he rebuked him. So what are you going to do with me? This boy muttered, this boy mumbled, and he looked just seemed as if he was the age of 17. Are you going to hand me over? Are you going to hand me over to the army or to the police? This man asked. Now for a moment Sadao did not answer. He finished his examination and then pulled the silk quilt over this man, and he just covered this man with the quilt. I do not know myself, what shall I do with you? Sadao said. I ought of course to give you to the police. I must be giving to you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything about yourself. I don't want to hear that. And he put up his hand as he saw that the young man was about to speak. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask it. And Sadao says, don't even tell me your name, what your name is, unless I ask from you. They looked at each other for a moment, and then the young man closed his eyes and then turned his face to the wall, and this way, okay, he whispered, his mouth a bitter line. He whispered, and there was a bitter line. Bitter line means over a grudge bearing, dissatisfied line. He was in a grudge that he didn't actually listen to him. He didn't even wanted to know his name, and that is the grudge of this American man was. So outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sadao. He saw at once that she was in trouble, and Sadao, Yumi tells me The servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man over here anymore. And she came in with a news that the servants were not actually wanting to stay over here if they are serving this man. If they are serving the enemies in such a situation, they cannot stay over here, she said. And she tells me that they are saying that you and I was so long in America that we have forgotten to think of our own country first, and they think as if we are Americans and we like Americans. So this is what the thing Hannah had actually gathered from the uh, servants over there in the house, and she told the same thing to her husband Sadav. Now, my dear students, it is not true. It is not true. Sadav said harshly, unpleasantly. He said, "Americans are our enemies, and but I have been trained not to let a man die simply because he was a doctor. If I can help it, I will try to help it. Being a doctor." Now the servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously. She was a bit worried, and the servants do not know this thing, and they are not. They do not know about this particular thing what you are telling right now. And no, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say anything more, and somehow the household dragged on. Dragged on means carried on, actually, and the servants grew much more watchful as these people were doing, Hannah and Sada were doing. The courtesy was as careful as ever. Their politeness, the respect, and the kindness and the helpfulness was as careful as ever what they are up to. But their eyes were cold upon the pair. They did not actually wanted to help these two people to whom they were hired to, for whom they were actually working. Okay, and that is Sadav and Hannah. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning. So the gardener said it is very clear that our master should know what is needful in such a situation, and he is a prisoner of war, and this man should be handed over to the police. And why is this man over here? And in such a situation, he had worked with the flowers all his life and had been a specialist too in the moss. Now, my dear students, he had worked in the Sadav's house garden over there, and he had been a specialist in the moss. And my dear students, a moss is a small flowerless green plant which lacks true roots, and which has less roots and grows in low carpet type of areas or a rounded form of cushions in damp habitat, my dear students. Now let's move ahead. So in the moss, for Sadav's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in the Japan, and for Sadav's garden was one such a lovely garden, we can say over here, and sweeping the bright green carpet constantly, that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet. Marred means spoiled that green velvet of the moss in the garden. Everything used to be so lovely and green. This moss carpet used to be green and lovely, and the velvet of its surface. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do. He should be doing what is needful, he should be doing, according to the gardener. And he now said, pinching a bud from a bush as he spoke, when the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? He should let him bleed. He should let this man die. The young master is so proud of his skill. According to the cook, that young master is so proud. The young master over here is talking of Sadav. So Sadav is so much proud. According to the cook, was so proud of his skill, so proud of his talent, expertise, ability to save the life of the people, that he saves any life, and he's even saving the life of an enemy. The cook said contemptuously, he said this sarcastically, mockingly, insultingly, and she, in such a situation, when she was doing her work also, Hannah was doing her work also, she split a fowl's neck skillfully. So they were having the making about to have the food made. So perhaps the chicken was about to be made, and that is why domestic chicken, and we read over here that she split a fowl's neck over here. Fowl is a domestic cock, so she split the throat of the domestic cock skillfully, and held the fluttering bird, and in such a situation, which was shaking, which was trembling in pain, and then the blood flow into the roots of the wistaria vine, which was present in the garden of Sadao. Now, wistaria vine is actually a climbing shrub of the pea family, and which is hanging in clusters of fragrant bluish lilac colored flowers also. And blood is the best of fertilizers, and the old gardener would not let her drop a waste of it even. So that is why this is one of the reasons she was actually splitting the fowl's neck, splitting the domestic cock neck over there in the garden over there. So the blood is best of the fertilizers according to the gardener. Now moving ahead, and it is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. Now Yumi, who was a maid over there, she said it is best that we should think of the children and what will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor, if their father is convicted as a traitor, as a person who has betrayed his own country. What will happen in such a situation of these children? And they did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah, as she stood arranging the day flowers of the veranda nearby, and that they were right. She knew too much most of her being, and she knew that whatever these servants and maid are telling, actually they are correct what they are saying. But what there was another part of her which she herself could not understand. It was not sentimental, it was not emotional, lacking of the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner. She had to come think of him as a prisoner, and she had not liked him even yesterday when he had said in his impulsive way, in his daring way, in his thoughtless way, anyway, and we come to know that the person over here reveals his name, this American person, this American injured man who has been operated upon is revealing his name over here to Hannah. And he said to Hannah, anyway, let me tell you that my name is Tom. And she had only bowed her a little distant bow, and she bowed to accept what he had said, and she saw that he was hurt in his eyes, but she did not wish to assuage it, to check it. Assuage means to check it, the condition of how much that the eyes were hurt. Indeed, he was a great trouble in the house. The main thing was this, and everyone in the house was troubled by it. Now, as for Sada, every day he examined the wound carefully. The last stitches had been pulled out this morning, and the young man would be in a fortnight be nearly as well as ever. Fortnight means a period of 2 weeks. So it would take about 2 weeks to actually get this man well. And Sada went back to his office and carefully tapped a letter to the chief of police reporting the whole matter. And the thing what he was writing is written in double quotes over here. On the 21st day of February, an escaped prisoner was washed up on the shore in front of my house. He wrote this sentence, and the double quotes is closed. This was the thing that he tapped in a paper, and so far he tapped, and then he opened a secret door of his desk and then put the unfinished report into it, and he closed the desk drawer. On the 7th day after that, 2 things happened. In the morning, the servants left together. The servants left the house of Sadao, their belongings tied in a large cotton square kerchiefs. In Hindi, you call it at gatri. Kerchief is kind of a gatri where these actually maids and the servants tied, and they were about to leave the house. They wanted to leave the house. When Hannah got up in the morning, they found that nothing was done over that point of time. The house was not clean and the food wasn't prepared. And she knew that what it meant. Actually, she was dismayed, she was surprised actually, and she was even terrified. She was actually extremely fearful, but her pride, simply being as a mistress, being the female head of the household, would not allow her to actually show her fear in such a situation, and instead she inclined her gracefully. She bowed gracefully before the servants and the maid, gracefully, respectfully, and when they appeared before her in the kitchen, and she paid them off and thanked them for all what they had done for her. They had served Sada since he was a little boy. Little boy in his father's house when he was young, and they were with him since his childhood. And Yumi cried because of the children. She was so grieved. She was so lamenting. She was so weeping. And after that, she had actually gone. She ran back to Hannah to get closer to the child she was looking. Now, if the baby misses me too much, send for me. Just call me and I'll be over there. I'm going to my own house, and you know where it is, Yumi told. And thank you, Hannah said, smiling, and she said, thank you, but she told herself she would not send for Yumi, however the baby cried. And she made the breakfast, and Sada helped her with the children, and she made the breakfast, and Sada was doing with helping the children, and neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were all gone. All the servants and the maid had gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back again to Sada. And now she said to her husband, why is it that we are unable to understand? We cannot see clearly what we ought to do, what we should be doing. And she asked what is needful, what we should be doing, why are we not able to understand that, and why we are not doing that. Even the servants see more clearly than we do. And even the servants know what we should be doing, but we are not doing that. Why are we different from the other Japanese people? And Sada did not answer to the wife's question in such a situation, but a little later he went into the room when the prisoner was and said brusquely, he said unpleasingly, impolitely, rudely, discreetly, you can say harshingly. And today you may get up on your feet, he said, from this American man Tom, and I want you to stand up and stay about 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try this twice as long, and it would be well that you get back your strength as fast, as quickly as possible. As soon as you get healthy, it's better for you. And he saw the flicker of terror. He saw the brief feeling of terror on the young man's face that was still very pale. Okay, the boy murmured. This boy mumbled. Evidently, he was determined to say more. Evidently means obviously it was visible. He was still firm to say more. I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life. And Tom said that Tom was thanking Sadao in such a situation. And Sadao said, don't thank me too early. And he saw that the flicker of terror again in the boy's eyes. So flicker, there was a brief feeling of terror again in the boy's eyes. Terror as unmistakable as that of an animal as is being about to be preyed in such a situation. So the scars on his neck were crimson for a moment. Scars means wounds on his neck, were crimson or were of deep red color for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sada did not ask even. And in the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on the unaccustomed labor, unusual labor, uncommon labor, so she saw actually a messenger had come to the door in her official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw breath. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, pantingly, gaspingly, and unable to utter a word. She was unable to utter a word because she ran so fast and she was gasping and was unable to speak. But by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood, and she pointed at him helplessly. And Sada looked up from his book. He was reading a book, and he looked up from his book, and he was in his office, and the other partition which was thrown open into the garden for the southern sunshine, and this man had come from the garden only. What is it? He asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. What is it? What is the purpose? Why are you here? And you are to come to the palace, the man said. The whole general is in pain again. The whole general is having the pain again, and this man has come to deliver the message over here that the general has a pain, and you being as a doctor, you go and check him. So he has come to deliver the message. Oh, Hannah breathed is that tall. So according to Hannah, it was just something unexpected. It was still not a big problem. And the messenger really, he said, all. Is that all? Is it really something? What you something is all? A person of a stature of a general, is it all? So he exclaimed, he declared in this way, and uh, correcting herself in this way, is it not enough? Again, the messenger said, is it not enough? So then she replied, indeed it is. She replied, I am very sorry for what I said. When Sada came to said goodbye, she was in the kitchen, but doing nothing. The children were asleep, and she sat only resting for a moment, and she was more exhausted from her fright, from her fear, rather than from her work. With this, we come to the end of the part 4, and I hope you will be able to understand the story by this now. And in the next part will be of part number 5, and we'll be moving ahead. Thank you.